distinct generation of individuals exists who recall both rotary dials and the initial iPhone release, and psychologists struggle to exactly classify where they belong. Being born from 1976 to 1985 places you at the late stage of Generation X, yet you aren't truly a millennial, despite society constantly attempting to force you into either category. You are what scientists began terming a Xennial in roughly 2014, with certain sociologists designating this demographic a microgeneration due to its incredibly narrow time frame. What snorts occurred throughout that exact period of time produced a phenomenon that is truly deserving of deep analysis. Therefore, today we are taking a moment to analyze what makes this group fascinating from a cognitive standpoint. Initially, you navigated a youthful period within an analog environment, where dullness was simply an emotion you endured, and where you were required to actually memorize contact numbers. And let's not forget the panic of missing a preferred television program. It simply vanished forever. However, one morning, just as you transitioned into maturity, the whole society shifted online, not slowly, but instantly. The scheduling of this transformation carried impacts that remain visible today, whereas most cohorts develop completely within a single technological framework. Xennials, conversely, navigated both of these highly impactful realities during the exact period when you were actively figuring out your identity. Your late adolescence appeared drastically distinct from your 20s, creating an age gap experience much broader than average populations face. Ponder the effects of this dynamic on your everyday routine. Recall how frequently your youth involved trading handwritten messages at school, sharing chats that vanished into thin air, or arranging meetups without the luxury of texting "running late" or "where are you?" You merely arrived and prayed your peers would actually show up. That dynamic demanded an entirely unique level of faith and dedication compared to what we experience today. But then you reached your 20s and watched society acquire mobile devices, signing up for Friendster, then MySpace, and ultimately Facebook. Before digital networks, humanity generally possessed merely 3 unique methods to reach anybody: ringing a domestic or professional line, or physically visiting their residence. Next thing you know, you possess 17 separate communication platforms, and you effortlessly adapted to them, having tasted both eras during your developmental phase. Based on neurological studies, the prefrontal cortex, the area governing our capacity to handle fresh scenarios and grasp complicated abilities, continues developing until approximately age 25, with a study in Nature Neuroscience confirming this prolonged maturation cycle. This implies that Xennials remained inside this peak malleability period right as the digital landscape underwent an absolute transformation. You remained youthful enough that absorbing modern tech seemed instinctual, yet mature enough to recall the era that existed prior. Because they were mature adults when modern gadgets emerged, Generation X individuals might occasionally appear somewhat cynical regarding tech. Millennials, notably the younger cohort, possess zero genuine recollection of a timeline devoid of internet access. Should you be a Xennial, however, you have lived through both realities, forging a unique type of fluency that remains exceptionally scarce. You possess the ability to hold an in-person chat without glancing at a screen every 30 seconds, while remaining completely calm about mastering unfamiliar applications. You recall the exact sensation of being truly disconnected for extended periods, representing an occurrence numerous younger folks absolutely lack. Yet your snorts, similarly, not terrified by innovations in the manner that several older demographics tend to be. And this reality manifests in manners you probably fail to realize, like how you surely harbor a distinct approach to confidentiality than alternative groups. You matured within a society where your awkward phases merely dissolved into history rather than existing permanently across social networks. That middle school haircut, that breakup, that messy evening at a gathering, zero photographic proof remains. It solely survives within the tales individuals share, forging a structurally unique bond with your personal history. Your recollections might develop, might turn into legends, might alter form gradually, exactly how human cognition organically operates. You remained unburdened by digital tracking, while studies concerning autobiographical recall indicate that how we catalog and retrieve private moments remains highly adaptable. Our minds are built to filter memories, retain the essential pieces, and allow the remainder to vanish. Once everything becomes eternally recorded and searchable, that organic function becomes tangled in manners we are continuously attempting to comprehend. Yet here is where matters turn complicated. You simultaneously joined the employment sector right near the 2008 financial crash, meaning many of you endured massive economic turbulence during the precise period when you needed to be launching your professions. That scheduling carries more weight than society grasps, since studies regarding financial struggle indicate that economic shock during this developmental phase yields permanent psychological impacts. Individuals facing employment loss or fiscal precarity throughout this particular time frame frequently drag those traumas forward, even long after their conditions mend. It alters how you perceive wealth, safety, and danger in patterns that rarely vanish effortlessly. Thus, you have a demographic that managed to adjust to immense technological evolution, yet simultaneously became economically scarred precisely when you aimed to establish stability. You successfully handled transitions because survival required it, though you could simultaneously harbor a persistent dread of, what if everything crumbles again running through your decision-making? And practically nobody discusses this distinct blend, as the cultural dialogue regarding generations usually contrasts Gen X against Millennials, pretending everybody born after 1965 and prior to 2000 is fundamentally identical. Nevertheless, the precise years you entered the world, particularly amidst phases of sweeping change, form distinct experiences that cannot squeeze into those broad categories. Xennials navigate a paradox that is frankly quite unusual. You retain the self-reliance and skepticism of Gen X since you matured before helicopter parenting turned standard. Your parents likely lacked knowledge of your whereabouts for hours at a time, and that reality remained completely normal. You figured out how to troubleshoot dilemmas independently, to amuse yourself, and to navigate boredom and frustration absent immediate adult mediation. However, you likewise achieved adulthood amidst the early days of the internet, when innovation was still believed to connect humanity and fix everything, right before we collectively discovered that it might be actually making some things considerably more complicated. It is bizarre to discover oneself there, independent yet cooperative, doubtful but optimistic, digital while remaining analog. What appears to characterize Xennials is this capacity to balance contradictions without it appearing weird. You recall the before and the after, meaning you are capable of recognizing what was gained alongside what was lost. Perhaps you are not quite as nostalgic regarding the past in the exact manner Gen X might appear, because you sincerely value modern conveniences too. However, unlike many of the younger cohorts, you continually recognize exactly what we surrendered. You sacrificed the capacity to be authentically isolated alongside your thoughts without effort, and you sacrificed the patience that originates from waiting. You sacrificed a specific type of presence that flourished when there was not perpetually another element competing to secure your attention. Yet you acquired connection, data, and opportunities your younger self could never have imagined. If you're a Xennial, you likely sense that you never perfectly belong anywhere. Too young for certain experiences and too old for others, caught between two worlds, is not a flaw. That is actually the defining feature of your generation's journey. Inside a world that continuously changes faster than anyone can predict, having survived one monumental transition might be one of the absolutely most valuable lessons you could have acquired. You have adjusted to a transitional lifestyle. Realizing the environment where you were raised does not necessarily have to be the one where you live forever. The Xennial experience remains vital to know about primarily because of that core reality more than anything, not simply because you're special in some superior way, but since you lived through a specific moment in history that taught you something the rest of society is still attempting to figure out: how to adapt without losing yourself in the process. And if this resonated with you, I'd sincerely appreciate you subscribing. And if you want to assist me in keeping making content like this, consider joining as a channel member, as your support genuinely means a lot. I've got several additional videos queued up that I believe you'll connect with. Different topics, but sharing the same kind of depth. I'll see you in the next one.